Yeah, back in it.
Back to it, yeah.
Back full on into comedy is what I'm hearing, man.
I really wish there was a state called this.
It's what we need.
Back into comedy? Yeah, it's what we need. More states.
Well,
carve them on up.
And we're back at the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Quinn, with my podcast co-host, Dominic DiTolla.
What's up,
and
Chris?
we're here talking college football, man.
Yeah, college football. I haven't done a college football one in a while. And excited. I remember, Chris, you brought this up. You're like, we need to pick a team that had like its best season, but it's like their only best season. And this was an incredible thrill ride of a year for a university that is not well known.
Yeah, well, we got the 91 East Carolina Pirates.
That's right, 1991 East Carolina Pirates.
You're right. We need a state that's East Carolina. We can divide that into thirds.
It's just like a pie chart, right?
It's just like a pie chart now.
Anyway, why 91 is important is East Carolina isn't necessarily like a big football school. They're not really kind of a big anything school as far as like athletic dominance, but they really had a decent era back in the 1970s under future Auburn coach Pat Dye. I mean, they did have quite a few winning seasons. He didn't even have a losing season as head coach from 74 to 79. But then the 80s are kind of a dark period for this program coming off that success because, you know, you have a great college football coach, probably going to go to a bigger program for a lot more money, and that's exactly what happened.
Exactly.
And the 80s weren't particularly kind. They only had one above 500 record. They weren't Oregon State shitty, as we talked about back in the day, but they weren't, like, really that good. They had just gotten out of the Southland Conference and gone independent.
Yep.
And for those of you who are listening who don't know, the independents were a lot more than they are now. I think it's just like Notre Dame and BYU that are left, but there were probably like 30 teams back in those days who had no conference affiliation. Like Florida State was a good example of one. Penn State was also at that time an independent. So East Carolina's kind of in that mix and kind of at the lower tier of it.
Well, we see in the 90s, we see conferences really getting these bigger colleges in, and then the smaller conferences, the TV really consolidates a lot of these teams into playing each other.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
And that's why when we kind of break down their schedule, you kind of see like, oh, there are some rivalry games, but there's also like, why the hell are they playing this team?
Yeah, exactly. Some straight up random ones where you're just like, oh, they're in the independent. So there's literally no affiliation. They're just like, you want to play? Let's play.
Yeah, it's just like, who can we schedule? What teams need non-conference games against us?
Yep.
And yeah, and that's a great way for a program like that to make money is, you know, like, hey, they're going to pay us $500,000 to get our asses kicked. This pays for this year's budget.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
My uncle actually told me that when Cal State Fullerton had a football team, they would go to like LSU or SEC country, just get absolutely throttled, but make their budget just by getting their asses kicked.
For the year. Yeah, exactly. And that's really how it's set up is the smaller teams go to get crushed maybe early in the season because they really want to put confidence on these bigger team shoulders and then, you know, steamroll throughout the season. And it's really interesting how much money they make from one game.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back into it. Let's get into 91.
Yeah, let's get into
coming into this season, their head coach, Bill Lewis, is in his third year. Got the job in 1989 and had two about 500 records for them, which is good. But he's starting to accumulate a lot of talent, and it's finally starting to show itself in 91. And most notably, their quarterback, who is a future NFL quarterback and one of my favorite players to watch as a kid, in Jeff Blake.
Yep.
And Jeff Blake is an interesting quarterback as far as, number one, he threw the best deep ball I've ever seen in the NFL. Of his era, he threw the best one, the prettiest one. It was just like
most accurate and
like those Nerf balls with the fucking tails on it. He would just launch them to Pickens and Scott. It's a goddamn shame he had to play for Cincinnati. I wish he was played for the Steelers back in those days. They would have been actually really good. But Jeff Blake's your quarterback. You're coming off a 5-6 season, and you're kind of set up with a very tough road game to start the year.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of interesting because Illinois, I feel like in this era, it was a better football team than they are now.
Yeah, and this is kind of the following year we had talked about them in the Holiday Bowl when they lost to UH.
Yep.
Like, Illinois at this time was a good program. I think John Makovic was their coach, or I don't know if Lou Tepper was there. But in 91, Jeff George had just left. But they're a program and team based on their linebacking core and their defense. Not a lot of sizzle on the offensive side of the ball, but they're really good. Like, they're a upper tier Big Ten team. And East Carolina, because of you're an independent, you got to go play everybody. They're sent there the first week, August 31st, 1991. They go to Champaign to play Illinois. And what a freaking game.
Yeah, well, this is what I was saying before the podcast with you is I was watching a lot of highlights from these games. And if you ever want to go watch some seriously entertaining college football, there's so many of these games are back and forth, up and down. They come back late and win. Like, it is so... The ECU in this 91 season is so much fun to watch.
And all the games are... I mean, save for a couple where they just blew the other team out, they're all exciting.
Yep.
Like, they're all coming down to the final minute. They're all back and forth. And this game proves no different when they go and play Illinois because what ends up happening, though, unfortunately...
I was going to say, it's kind of like a shitty thing in the fourth quarter. So
yeah, they're down 38-17 in the second half. And Blake brings them within a touchdown to 38-31 with two touchdown passes to Deion Johnson, who is a fantastic player. I don't know if you saw any of his highlights. Mm-hmm. He reminded me of that UH guy, Jeff Seidner.
Oh, yeah.
Who's probably like 5'5", 5'6", and you use him out of the backfield. You can use him split out wide. He was a wide receiver. But, yeah, just incredible. Just an incredible playmaker. And they get down to do the onside kick at the end of the game after Blake brings them all the way back. They recover the onside kick. Deion Johnson gets it. And then the refs throw a penalty flag.
And the refs throw this penalty flag that is such bullshit.
Oh, it's total bullshit.
That's the thing that really sucks about the rest of the season, but maybe this kind of spurred them on was I think they flagged them for excessive celebration.
And to me, it's the dumbest thing ever because I didn't see any of them acting like pointing at the Illinois bench or like
they were literally
the crowd.
Celebrating with each other, which should be completely
If you don't celebrate as a football player on a play like that, or as a team coming back, you're a fucking Patrick Bateman sociopath with no emotion.
Exactly.
Like, even as a fan, you got to be like, oh my goddamn God. Like.
Well, that's what sucked. So they go on to end up losing 38-31, even though they really should have had this shot to tie the game at least. And that, like I was saying, kind of spurs on to the rest of their season possibly. So it
really does. I mean, it had to be probably really disappointing to lose that game, to know that you likely should have won. But also you have to look at it and go like, oh, we're fucking good.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they were.
Yep.
And the following week they go and play Memphis, who is actually in their conference right now. Memphis had just come off a week where they beat Southern Cal at the Coliseum. And Memphis isn't really a slouch right now, but they end up going back and forth with Memphis. And then with 7:49 to go, they end up getting a rushing touchdown and winning the game eventually 20-13, which proved to be the difference.
And then they go take on Central Florida.
Yeah, and then this is where you see Blake, Deion Johnson, their tight end Luke Fisher, the rest of their playmakers as far as
kind of spread their wings.
Yeah, Hunter Gallimore.
Yep.
Really, and this is an offense that's really distinctly pass first as far as you have a decent offensive line, but by that same token, I don't think any of their running backs, like their leading rusher, let me look this up real quick. Cedric Van Buren, 351 rushing yards.
Yeah.
It was like the 77 Broncos. It was just like an amalgam of guys. And they ran to run out the clock, keep the ball away, but it was all based on this rollout offense with Blake because if you don't know or you've never seen him play, he's not like Russell Wilson height, but he's about 6 foot, 6'1", probably 6'1" tops, but he's not like a tall guy at all. So instinctively with this offense, credit to their offensive coordinator, when you roll guys out the pocket, it not only helps your offensive line as far as pass protection, it also helps your quarterback see the field better and get a little bit more depth in the pocket, particularly for a smaller guy. Drew Brees used to do this all the time when he played for San Diego and the Saints. But yeah, so
that's awesome. Yeah,
2-1, 47-25 win over Central Florida, and then the following week is the big game.
Yeah,
it's the first of many big games this year. They take on South Carolina, an SEC. Yeah, they were in the SEC at this point.
Yep.
They take them on. They had never beaten them. I think they were 0-7 against South Carolina heading into this game in Columbia. On the road, and my God, what a game. Hey, everybody. Just want to take a quick break to let you know that our Sports Experience podcast is brought to you by Engle Studio here, and they're here in Tucson for all your recording needs.
Well, this is where we get into their rivals, even though they're not in conferences, because like you're saying, they haven't beat them in 7 times, but they don't play them every single year.
No, and I don't think they'd ever played them in Greenville either, where East Carolina is. So, back and forth game, lots of exciting plays, and they win 31-20. They're 3-1.
They're 3-1.
Amazingly, they're 3-1, and this sets up probably the biggest 2-game stretch of the season. As far, or wait, no, the following week they played Akron and just beat the shit out of them.
I was going to say
56-20.
Akron was just one of those programs that didn't have it, you know what I mean? When you see a team tack 50 on, you're just like, all right.
Well, they're a MAC school.
Yeah.
And, they don't recruit the type of talent that conference has as far as. And
it's not there. Yeah.
It's just like, hey, are you independent?
Yeah, exactly. But you're right. I feel like this is where they proved that they were a serious program.
Yeah,
because
the next 2 games, yeah.
All the other games, it kind of could be like, yeah, I mean, they're doing good, but I mean, against 2. And that's kind of the thing with college sports is like you really have to beat somebody in the top 25.
Yeah, and none of the teams they played, including South Carolina, were ranked in the top 25. I don't even think Illinois was ranked when they played them to start the season on ESPN. But the next 2 weeks are big. They had drawn Syracuse, who was ranked 15th at the time, and they have to play them on the road at the Carrier Dome. And like I said, just like the South Carolina game.
Yes.
Back and forth.
Back and forth. And this is what I mean. It's some seriously entertaining college football.
Oh, totally.
It's really great.
But they end up winning 23-20.
Yep.
And, you watch the end of the game and everyone's excited. It's like, oh, my God, this team's actually arrived.
Because Syracuse was ranked 15th at this point, and everybody knows Syracuse as a football program. Like, you would see them and be like, oh, yeah, all right.
Yeah, like, they're identifiable.
Exactly.
You're not like, who the fuck are these guys?
Akron? Who's that? Yeah. So it's their time to show pretty much like the nation, like, no, we're a serious football team. And that's when they go in to take Pittsburgh, which was another great team at the moment.
Well, yeah, they were ranked 23rd. They get to play them at home, and this is a very big game. And things aren't really going well for them up into the second half of the game.
I was going to say, like, they come back so much.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I bet you almost get used to it where, like, the first half you're like, here we go again. And then Blake just knows how to finish games. How about that?
Yeah. No, I mean, he did it in his NFL career.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
It's like you put your team on his shoulders and he comes through. In the fourth quarter, they're down by 7 points, 23-16. And what ends up happening is, out of the shadow of his own end zone, he's hitting Gallimore, he's hitting Fisher. There was a big face mask penalty on Fisher as he was going out of bounds, and he drives him all the way down to the 2 with like 2.5 minutes to go and dives into the end zone to make it 23-22. And then guess what happens right after that? This is college football in 1991. Let me explain this. Now you have that goofy fucking overtime where you start on the 25 and everybody gets a chance. Whatever, that's a topic for a different day. But if you're were tied at the end of regulation in college football up until 1995.
That was it.
That was it. You didn't play any extra football. The game ended in a tie. It was like soccer, pretty much.
Yeah.
There's not even a shootout. It would just end.
It would just end.
No fucking sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, they go for 2 and they make it. They make it to go up by 1 point. So it's 24-23, and Pitt has this frantic last-ditch drive where their receiver gets tackled inbounds, and because of the running clock, game just stops. Yeah, it's over. It's over.
They can't hike the ball and stop the clock. And that's where, because we see this a lot of the time, was Blake has these great runs at the end, but we also see these defensive stops.
Yeah.
Which I thought was actually kind of interesting because it wasn't all offense. It was their full team, and that's why this is such a great season.
Well, and the cool thing is that was their last home game of the season.
Oh, okay.
That was senior day. That was the last time all of those guys would play at that
What an
stadium.
amazing game.
Right?
Like, yeah, I didn't realize, I watched the highlights, and I didn't realize that was because, that's awesome, man.
No,
I was just thinking about that. Like, to have that on senior night, and I bet the audience was going absolutely ape shit.
Oh, they had to have. And, their defense really starts to kind of pick it up towards the end of the season.
Yep.
They were not like great. They had Robert Jones, who was a future first-round pick, great player for the Cowboys on their 3 Super Bowl teams at linebacker. But their defensive backfield and linebacker, their back 7 had 20 interceptions that year in 11 games, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, we see they shut out a game later with an interception, but yeah, they take on Tulane next.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's why they were such a great team this year. Is it wasn't just the offense, it was their full team.
Yeah.
And it comes back, and I wanted to bring this up earlier, was they had this
mantra
of I believe, and the coach really got everybody to believe in everybody else in the team. And I feel like when a team does that, they really play at their full potential.
And then the fans picked it up, and it became We Believe. And that was just the way it went for the rest of the season. And like you said, they took on Tulane, beat them 38-28. They were ahead by like 25 points at halftime. So, I mean, it was kind of garbage time touchdowns for Tulane. But Southern Miss the following week, 48-20. So they're really humming. And then for their last game, they go to Cincinnati, the team they had never lost to, beat them 24-17 their last 3 weeks. So they're 10-1. They are 10-1. And they're ranked inside the top 15.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's crazy to think about.
Well, to think that this team that had an okay run in the late 70s, but then were horrible in the 80s, and really it has to be hard for them to recruit in Carolina.
Oh, well,
so
you have, let's see,
just anywhere in that
Duke,
area. That's what I mean.
Fucking North Carolina, NC State, Wake Forest. That's 4
right there. Yeah.
ACC programs right there, and that's not including. Oh, you know what game we forgot to talk about? That was peppered in there, the Virginia Tech game.
Oh yeah, the Virginia Tech
where
game.
they went to Blacksburg. I don't know how that.
That was after Southern Miss.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, they beat them in Blacksburg 24-17, and then the Cincinnati game was 30-19.
Yes, the Cincinnati game was 30-19.
Yeah, so they played their last games, all just swept right through it. They won 10 in a row to close the season.
And this is the thing that kind of sucks about that penalty first game, but we wouldn't really know how the season would have went, but they really should have had a chance to tie that game or whatever, you know what I mean? And we know they go for that 2 point. I'm not even going to lie. We know they go for the 2.
Well, if you think about it, you're down 38-30 or 31.
Yep.
You have the ball in the opponent's 46 after the onside kick, or at your own 46, and then you have a 15-yard penalty. You're back at the 31. I mean, to think that could have been the undefeated season.
Yep.
Well, I shouldn't say could have been the undefeated season. They still have a game to play.
Oh, yeah, shit, man.
Because they were invited to
the
Peach Bowl.
Yeah.
They were invited to the Peach Bowl. They accepted, and guess who they drew?
And this is why I love it, because I feel like back in the day, bowls were more into this, more into getting rivals almost to battle each other. So
Yeah.
so it's East Carolina Pirates against the NC State. Come on now.
Yeah.
And it's such a rival like the South Carolina. So it sets up for this amazing game again. That's the thing that I kept going back to, was like they just keep playing these like ridiculously fun games.
They play 60-minute games for the most part. Like, you know, they'll take your best shot and see what they can do at the very end.
Yeah,
and
seriously though.
this was a fun game to watch. I mean, this is a great game to watch. And North Carolina State's ranked too. They're 21st. So the Peach Bowl's probably, I mean, now it's part of the whole college football playoff.
Yeah.
But even at the time, although it wasn't in kind of like the national championship bowl games, it was like one of the best games. I think it would pit like the second or third ACC team against the second or third SEC team. Like that's what it was for like the 90s. So it was one of those bowls that everybody was watching. That's the thing. It's January 1st, 92.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a New Year's Day bowl game.
Yep.
It's not like they're playing it like December 15th at the Winter's Morn douche.
Yeah, exactly.
Brought to you by ESPN Stadium. But no, actually, this is an interesting game too. This was the last college football game and the last football game ever played at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium.
Oh, really?
So that's where the Falcons had played. That's
Yeah.
where the Braves played too. It was one of those kind of multi-purpose dealies built back in the 60s. But yeah, exciting game, as we brought up before. East Carolina kind of jumped out to an early lead, but by the third quarter is when NC State really turned it on.
And that's like what I was saying, was almost all of their games are close. So like they came out early and were winning, but like towards the end of the game, it was another nail biter.
They were down by 17 points with 13 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're down by 17 points with 13 minutes to go. And what they call it
Is
the rally.
the rally.
They call this moment, the next 13 minutes plus, the rally, because of Blake going insane.
Well, it reminds me of the Patriots thing. So like, just like being down that much, I feel like a lot of teams almost fold and they're just like, we're done. And I just feel like Blake was just like, no, I'm going to start winging it and we need to start going.
And 3 touchdown passes.
3 touchdown passes.
In the fourth quarter. And obviously they missed an extra point, but they're now up 37-34 with not a lot of time left. This is NC State's last gasp.
And NC State, to their credit, drives all the way down. And
they don't play for the win, though, like East Carolina
I was just going to say, East Carolina plays for the win, and we saw it earlier in the season. I feel like NC State played for the tie.
Yeah, they totally played for the tie because they went for the tie.
Yes.
And you know what? When you play not to win, you're not going to win.
Exactly.
And you know what happened? They missed a fucking field goal.
And it ricochets off of that post, and you look at it and you're like, that is so poetic for this season, because the games were so fucking close and they were down so many times and came back at the end so many times.
Yeah.
And then that's how this bowl game went.
Oh, totally. No, and to their credit, finished the season 11-1, and they're ranked 9th.
Yeah.
They're ranked in the top 10, the only time that's ever happened.
I was wondering if they should have gotten a higher ranking, but then the rankings back then were so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
11-1 and the Peach Bowl victory is pretty good.
Your only loss is because of an excessive celebration penalty. When I'm trying to think, 91. Oh, that was the year they split it between undefeated Miami and then undefeated Washington. But yeah, they win the game, and unfortunately for them, things kind of start, the wheels come off.
Well, that's the thing about that happens with these programs sometimes, is they just can't keep the recruiting up.
Exactly, and I think a big blow to that was immediately, like after the season, Bobby Ross leaves Georgia Tech and goes to the Chargers. There's a huge job wide open with a team that had just won a national championship 2 years ago, and Bill Lewis leaves to take it.
Yep.
And you lose your head coach. You lose guys like Blake. You lose guys like Robert Jones. I mean,
And that's it.
yeah, because I mean, that's why it's always special for these programs, because maybe you get a recruiting class or two together where you can sustain that success. But if you can't do it, it's not like you're just fed players all the time like these bigger programs. And they've been competitive since then, but never 11-1 good.
No,
I mean,
not even close.
they had some good years with, what's his name? David Garrard, who played for the Jaguars. He was there at East Carolina in the late 90s, early 2000s. They were good, but nothing like this team, nothing like Jeff Blake. I mean, that was one of the best college football seasons from a non-major program.
Yeah, if you ever want to watch entertaining football, seriously, the highlights are absolutely awesome. And you're right, they were an independent. They were never going to see a recruiting class like this, but I have to get back into the coach and the system that he got everybody to buy into, because they really fought to the end of every game. Like you were saying, they played 60 minutes no matter what.
Oh, totally. And I'm still trying to figure out how Jeff Blake didn't end up at any of one of the Florida schools. That's where he's from. Like, I mean, Miami doesn't want you. Florida State. Come on, man, that's ridiculous.
Well, luckily, East Carolina picked him up. That's the other thing, is like they get lucked out on that sometimes, where they just don't see the talent, and he finishes out those games for them.
Exactly.
Thank you.
East Carolina.
Hey everybody, this is just a stock message at the end of every episode. We hope you enjoyed whatever athlete and or team that episode was about. Just want to say, give us a quick follow on all social media. We have a YouTube channel, the Sports Experience Podcast, and we're on Instagram, DiTolla Dominic, and myself, C. Quinn Comedy. So give us a follow all around. We're always recording right here at Engle Studio. Thank you all very much.